Hello and welcome to GatherVerse Asia Tech for Humanity Summit. And what an amazing start from Christopher there, an amazing introduction. But right now we have our amazing panelists and our first roundtable for today. And we're going to be talking about the AI's arms race, aligning AI sovereignty with humanity at the core. And what I'm going to do is basically go around to each individual person, do a quick introduction from yourselves, and then what we'll then do is then we'll get straight into the topics and this discussion because there's so much to discuss in such little time. So we'll start with Professor, then we'll go over to Dr. Venue, then we'll go over to Ian, and then we go over to Kamalika. So Professor, please introduce yourself, and then we'll go over to you next, Dr. Venue.
Yeah. Good day.
Dr. Venue, sorry, Dr. Gia, I mean, Professor will introduce himself first, and then after you, and then you'll go next, Doctor.
Okay, right. Thank you.
Okay. So, namaste. This is Professor Subhash Sharma from Kolkata, currently working with Supreme Knowledge Foundation as a professor, having more than 28 plus years of experience in academic leadership and special area of research primarily focused on AI for social goods. So I'm fortunate, it's my pleasure and honor to be part of today's the GatherVerse Asia Summit. So looking forward to an in session to share my thought, also to learn from you all. Thank you.
You're still having a little bit of audio issues, Professor. Just FYI, so I just wanted to inform you on that. Dr. Venue, please introduce yourself and welcome again, Doctor. It's great to see you again. Do you want to unmute yourself quickly?
Okay, right now am I audible now?
Professor, you're still having audio issues. We can't do the audio testing on here. If you want to go off the stage and you can do the testing on there, and then you can come back on after. Doctor, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, good day, Russell. It is the second time I'm meeting you, and I was in the platform almost 2.5 years, continuous following. And it's a platform, it is a passive learning. It is a kind. And also, networking with good eminent people, across the world. Lan, I also met you in the last meeting, and Komalika is the first time I'm meeting here. Thank you for your time. About me, I've been started my AI journey in 1993 as engineering graduate. From there, it is a passion to, AI. But AI, all of a sudden, came in 2025. Recently, we are hearing the word. So due to this reason, in 1990, the technology was a boom in the world. So today it is going to drive AI from 2025 to 2050. So to catch up, build the manpower, I have been started my project is literacy program across the world. Almost I have been trained with the webinars, 50,000 students across the world. So my target is the next year is around 2 lakhs people to bring the basic awareness. Thank you, Russell.
Thank you for joining us again, Doctor. And Ian, great to see you again as well. Please introduce yourself and welcome to the GatherVerse Summit.
Hello. I am the founder of Howla Hybrid Online Live, which is an education platform where students learn from each other, based on a micro group learning approach. And then I try to integrate logic and cognitive science and AI in guiding that. So, in fact, we are worried about this divide. But the thing is, as long as we are smart enough, actually AI can make ordinary students learn better. Like anyone can acquire what they need based on using the modern AI technologies. So that's what I'm trying to deliver to many audience in the world. Okay, so nice to meet you.
Thank you for joining us, Ian. And last but not least, welcome Kamalika. Please introduce yourself. And again, welcome to GatherVerse Asia Tech for Humanity Summit.
Thank you so much, Russell, and really excited to be here among this panel of the really amazing people. So I am Kumalika. I'm the founder of Myths of Technology. It's a newsletter that explores how AI and how AI and tech in general is impacting human society. Currently, I'm also working as a writer at this AI and Web3 company called CrunchDAO. My academic background is in philosophy. I did a majors in philosophy and started working back in December 2021. That was the time when metaverse was really big. So I just really wanted to explore what this new world really meant, and that's when I really started diving deeper into what web3 meant, and then soon found myself at the intersection of web3 and AI. But considering my background in philosophy, one of the things that really concerns me is how this hyperscaling, as Christopher mentioned, that currently there's this race where we're aggressively building tech, and especially how AI is penetrating itself deeper and deeper into society. But I think that we are not reflecting enough on how it is affecting us. So my mission is to just explore and aware, help more and more people think and reflect on how any technology affects them. And that's the entire purpose of my newsletter.
Well, thank you for joining us, Kamilika. And actually, funny that you said you have a Word3 background going into AI. I have a similar background too. So it's great to know that I'm not the only one. So thank you for joining us. And last but not least, I'll quickly introduce myself. So my name is Russell. I am the co-founder of Just Verify and also director of partnerships at GatherVerse. Just Verify is focused on building the trust layer infrastructure for AI. And our mission is to basically verify the integrity and trustworthiness of AI models to ensure the responsible adoption across the world, and basically make sure that every AI is trustworthy for both businesses and also for individuals too. So that's me in a nutshell. And now I'm going to jump straight into some of the questions, which I'm very excited to talk about today. So question one is, what would a human-centered AI sovereignty look like? So Kamalika, we'll start with you, and then we'll head over to Ian after. And then on the next question, we'll go over to Doctor and then Professor. So Kamalika, we'll start with yourself.
Sounds good. Well, you know what? The question itself is really interesting to me because it goes back to the word artificial intelligence itself. And when you talk about artificial intelligence is a quality that is so inherent to human beings, or how we identify ourselves as a species. Of course, there's a lot more dimensions to what it means to be a human, but on the pyramid of, I would say, the animal kingdom, usually we think that okay, we are one of the most intelligent species, and probably being a human being means to be an intelligent being. But when we bring in the word artificial intelligence, we are directly imposing the qualities of being a human being onto something that is just a piece of technology. So the question itself is very interesting, because when we say human-centered sovereign AI, then the question itself begs us to reflect on, hey, artificial intelligence is a tool, but being sovereign is a quality of human society. So is it really even possible to build sovereign AI? I am of the opinion that the question is not as much about sovereign AI, it's more about ownership, who really gets to own the technology. And considering we're talking about intelligence, which is not something like a piece of land, I would consider it as to be something along the lines of cultural commons, something that really cannot be owned. So then that just means that is it really possible to have sovereign AI? Because if we're looking at it from the perspective of hey, sovereign means that it is a government from a certain state that is governing this technology, then again, human centeredness is not really possible, because any state would consider the interests of its citizens first, and at a global level second. also at the very same time, the moment we bring in the idea of states, it means that we're also dividing people. Like there's an in group and there's an out group. So inherently, there's a competition that comes in where you would want your state to be at the top. That's one perspective. At the very same time, if we look at sovereign AI from the perspective of, let's say, not physical states, but digital states, because digital nations is another concept that is coming up. It can look something like, hey, I'm a part of the community, but at the very same time, it might look like technology being or AI being owned by a certain entity. And then again, we fall into the risk of techno feudalism, which means that, like, a certain entity will control the technology, and the users who are using that technology would be more like just, like people who are just a part of that state, but not really owning it. So
Okay.
in my perspective, the question is more about, like, is sovereign AI even possible? And if it really is, because if we were to look at it from the perspective of ownership, then it must be completely decentralized, where it is owned as a cultural common and like a collective, rather than being owned by like a state or an institution.
Sure. I mean, there's quite a lot of things that I could add on to there, because you touched on multiple points. But I would say, to kind of add to that and having a centralized point, so to speak, is that AI should really align with human values, right? And that, at the end of the day, whether we like it or not, we're going to be living with AI and robots, and technically another species, if you want to call it that or look at it that way, right? So the more aligned with the human values it is, the better, right? And the more in which it can have human understanding and human abilities, right, the better too. Arguing over decentralized, centralized, open source, closed source, that's all very debatable. And, having it applicable and accessible to everyone versus not. Again, that's another, standpoint, so to speak. But I think the bottom line is making sure that AI is aligned with human values as much as possible. I think fundamentally that's kind of like the bottom line, so to speak, when it comes to this. So, but Ian, I want to bring you on this. What are your thoughts on what Kamalika said, what I said, and then Professor, we will go over to you shortly. I saw you put your hand up, so we'll come over to you in a minute.
Okay. I'm not sure I'm an expert in this field, but I would approach this from my perspective as an educator in the AI era. I mean, many people are worried about the advanced AI functions and in everything, and then but I think history has been flowing better direction. I believe, and in more equal and more like a free directions. So AI technologies can actually free many souls. So many, like I said, as long as we are smart enough, we can utilize AI in a good way. Like, for example, in my case, when I teach my students, I fully utilize AI for like acquiring knowledge and finding some solutions. But I let my students use their own brain. So like please summarize the passage and please think about it. Please discuss about it. But I am the one who fully utilize AI. They are not the one. They don't know how to utilize it properly. So they just talk to each other and they share emotion and they get to learn things from each other, like learn from the teacher, learn from the other student through my micro group teaching method. And so also, I'm not sure if this is quite relevant to this issue. In this AI era, I really think public sectors cannot play a big role because, as Russell said, it changes so fast. The pace of AI change is so fast, so public sector cannot keep up with that. So I think in the future, private sector should be the ones who control this, manage this, like from their own autonomy, to make the world better, like from the perspective of humanitarian, with humanitarian purposes. So there could be lots of public sectors, private sectors who go for this to make them money. I really think that's how it's going to work. So even the education system shouldn't be fixed. It should be flexible enough so that it can be changed anytime in a better way. As long as it's good for many people, then many private companies would go for that. And then, but as you know, public sector, it takes so much time. In many cases, it goes corrupted for many reasons. It is rigid. It cannot change fast enough. So I think that's what I'm thinking. Private sectors can do that. Like the humanitarian private sectors can play a big role in the AI era.
It's an interesting perspective and a different perspective. Again, that's a whole nother debate you can go into, right? Public sector versus private sector, which is better? But I mean, again, still the bottom line is that it has to align with human values. I think whether which sector we're in, whatever we're doing, the bottom line is that AI has to align with human values, and if it doesn't, then we're going to have problems with that. So thank you very much, Ian, for sharing your thoughts. Now, Dr. Professor, we're going to head over to you both, and I have you both a very specific question, which I wanted to ask you, Dr. and Professor. We'll start with Doctor first, and then Professor will go to you after, which is, how can AI sovereignty align with human rights and values, which obviously I've just been mentioned. So, Doctor, please share your thoughts on that, and then Professor, we'll go to you after.
Because the sovereignty, the AI sovereignty, the word, AI is not a supreme because it is created by human being. So sovereignty means that is a supreme, right? AI is not a supreme. At the end of the day, HI is the supreme. See, HI is going to control AI. So AI is a slave to HI. Because what HI is going to give a demonstration of the instructions, AI is going to perform quickly. That is what the role of AI. Because that is where, the human is going to be dominated by the AI, but AI is not going to dominate.
I mean, we talk about AGI, ASI, we talk about, AI being smarter than, mankind, so to speak, combined. When it comes to the human rights and values, how do we make sure that we maintain that if we do have, let's say, AGI and ASI in the future?
Okay. Because the values is that the AI is going to learn from the HI, because from the human being. Because what are the rules and regulations we have to set for the AI? AI cannot define its own rules and regulations, morals, ethics, values. It is going to be replicated from the human being. So it is totally interdependent on HI. So HI is always a supreme. That is what a misconception across the globe. AI is going to dominate a human being. It is not correct. It's a replica. That's it.
Professor, what do you think?
Okay, I hope now I'm audible perfectly. So I just would like to add, before addressing this question, I will just take it back to the first question that Kamalika nicely addressed. So just would like to add here one line, that is, a human-centered AI sovereignty is one where technology should be taken as an enabler, not as a controller. That means you need to ensure protects human dignity and enhances inclusivity. Am I audible?
No, you just froze for a second there, but please continue, Professor.
Okay, so I just started from the, I take a brief introduction going, addressing to this question before that. So just would like to say that a human-centered AI sovereignty is one where technology can be seen as an enabler, not a controller. Whenever our philosophy is technology is going to enable something, not to going to control, then the things are very simple. For example, here we must think about the ethics, we must think about the fairness, explainability of the AI algorithms, and definitely the accessibility into every layer of AI adoption as well as the governance. So now coming to the question that has been asked to me, that how can AI sovereignty align with human rights and values? So if we see that AI sovereignty, rightly addressed by Doctor, that AI sovereignty must be built on the same universal principles that must afford the human rights. So what are those human rights? It must afford the privacy, it must afford the dignity, it must talk about the equity and freedom of choice. Any national or organizational AI framework must align with these values. Sovereignty is not about the isolation. It is about creating a system that reflects the local culture, right?
Let's dive into some of this, Professor and Doctor, because you both brought up some interesting points. You know, when we're talking about, you know, AI, you know, shouldn't be supreme, etc. And I mean, look, if AI becomes so intelligent than any human in the world, I mean, at that point, I mean, technically it is supreme. As one of my co-founders, Just Verify, says, you know, the AI is becoming the apex predator, right? It's not going to be humans at the top of the chain anymore. Technically, it will become AI. And, you know, it could be good, it could be bad, right? We've got dystopia versus utopia, right? And we all want the utopia world. So it's kind of like, how can we make sure that if AI is smarter than us and is, let's say, over us, so to speak, I don't like that word, but let's say it is smarter than us and it has control, so to speak, how do we make sure that it's aligned continuously with the human values, the human rights, and making sure it's putting humanity first, so to speak, so then that way then it pushes us towards the utopia rather than a dystopia, right? So that's what I'm thinking, and you know, that's what I want for mankind and for all of us to thrive, right? Because we want to all have a fantastic life and an equal playing field. And eventually, you know, it will take all the work of what we're doing as well off our hands and be doing it all for us. So let's just like jump into, I know there's a lot that you guys could add to what I was just saying there, but I also want to, you know, make sure that we continue with all the questions too. So my next question is, how do we measure AI success? Do we measure it by speed, by innovation, by humanity preserved? Or as what I like to say, right, is you can innovate and speed at the same time, as well as, you know, safety and humanity at the same time, right? You can do two things at once. Two things can be true at the same time. So, Kamalika, what is your thoughts? How do we measure AI success?
Russell, it's a wonderful question because, like, you know, it really forces us to just pause and reflect on one, where we are, second, where exactly we're going. Of course, like where we come from and exploring that is an equally important question. But if we were to talk about like what it really means to build AI successfully, I am of the perspective that it should align towards the benefit it is creating for humanity. Now, benefit in itself is such a broad word that it can be interpreted in so many ways that, you know, we can't really wrap our heads around at once. But like, you know, when you think about it from the perspective of like, there's one side that, okay, you know, like it should help the global economies go through the roof, and like, you know, you should be able to become hyper productive, and all those conversations that are happening at a larger scale, I would say. But another side of the conversation that we're really missing out on is just reflecting on what it really means to be a human. And like when we talk about even preserving humanity, what is it that we're really trying to preserve? Even for that, there's this perspective that, hey, if a technology is helping us be kinder to each other, be able to just like really hear each other out, build more tolerance towards each other, and like, you know, really appreciate each other for the differences rather than, I would say, like really radicalizing our opinions. I would say, like, if we reach at a stage where we can achieve all of that, that would be somewhat along the lines of being able to build successful AI. Now, even when we talk about like some of these very innate human values that, hey, are you a kind human being? And like, are you really able to hold respect for the differences that we have between each other? Where does that really come from? I would say like it is like not just like, of course everyone will have a different perspective on it. One might be that, hey, like if you're comfortable in your life and if you don't have any problems, then you might be more tolerable because you're comfortable, so there's no friction that you have to negate in order to just address another friction between opinions. But at the very same time, like another perspective could also be that what is it that AI is feeding us? Today, if we look at the stats, like most of the people, like in fact, like 65%, there was this study that came out recently which said that 65% of the people in global workforce are using AI tools today. They're using AI in some or the other form. Similarly, if we look at the number of users OpenAI alone has, we can easily see how deeply AI is like becoming a part of our lives more and more in every single day. So the numbers are just like only going to go up. Now the question is how exactly we're using it. Even like OpenAI recently published this paper, and in that they highlighted the use cases that people are using AI for. And the biggest of like one of the biggest ones there was writing, which means that like most of the people are using AI either for writing or like really summarizing and understanding what's already written, which means that we are really outsourcing how we think, what we think to AI. And that's like the moment when the most important question is like, okay, if we are completely or if you're mostly relying on AI to build your thought process, where is it leading you, and what are the values that are imbued in that LLM or the AI model that you're using? Now we all know that each LLM has its own bias, which again sends us back to exploring the question of that who decides what are the values of an AI model, which again, like just pulls us back into the same question that who gets to control it and how do we decide who gets to like really own it. So I think that it's like a vicious cycle that we are just all of us like we're stuck in, because if we just keep on going deeper and deeper and deeper, the only question or like the only way we can really build something good out of AI is like individually as human beings, if we're able to decide that, hey, like I want to serve the humanity better, so anything that is built using these hands that I have, it has to serve other people and it should not just fulfill my selfish desires. I think like that's the only way we can build successful AI or even preserve humanity or anything else.
There's a lot of great points that you brought up there, Kamalika, and just to kind of add to your stats of what you were mentioning too, I know there's a lack of AI adoption as well, going on across the world. I know obviously China and US have the most dominant forces when it comes to AI and AI innovation. But if we're just talking about adoption in general, I think the national average is something like 67%. And here in the UK, it's around, I think it's like 45, 47%. So, when it comes to adoption here in the UK, there's a lot of companies that still haven't even adopted AI yet. And there's actually even another study done as well, where actually, I think it's like over like 70% of people are using AI secretly in order to do their work, right? Like they don't even know that the companies are even using them. So to add to your point, Kamalika, yeah, that's a huge thing going on. But also we've got to think about as well, how do we measure the AI success, right? As in, is it AI adoption? Is it that how smart it is, or is it like the benchmarks that it's smashing, or is it even potentially new benchmarks and new standards that have to be set for humanity side, which have not even potentially even been invented yet, or maybe we even don't know about, and maybe those benchmarks might become the new ways in which success is measured. So Dr. Venue, let's bring you into this as well. What are your thoughts? And then Ian and Professor will go over to you next with the next question.
Okay, so can I?
Professor, we'll go over to you on the next question. Doctor, we'll jump on this one.
Should I address Russell?
Yes, please, Doctor. Sorry. Yeah, please.
Because Komalika is touched factors from the human angle. I will take it from the business angle. Because at the end of the day, AI is going to morely integrate in the business world. Like how SAP is dominating complete business process. In that aspect, if you look at the AI, the measurement, it comes as a KPI, means key performing index. If you look at that KPIs, the AI performance is three factors. One is a user centric, another is business, another is technical combination. These three. Because when we talk about these three as a key factors, the success measured is that ROI, means return on investment. Because for example, I have a food processing unit is there. I want to implement the AI application integrating with SAP.
Okay.
Because I want to integrate SAP with AI. What I see that how much amount I have been spent on AI upgrading, what is my return comparing with my running process on SAP. So due to that reason, there is a technology, another is human-centric, another is the return. These three factors plays a major role in the AI. This is the one beauty of AI is that it gives a zero defective service. Because if you take it any applications, there is a defective ratio of minimum 30% is there. When we incorporate with AI, that comes as a zero defective. That is the advantage of AI. Thank you, President.
Thank you, Doctor. And I still think there's a long way to go with AI. I mean, we've got to think about the different aspects of this. Like, for example, when it comes to hallucinations, toxicity, drifting, I mean, there's a multitude of problems that we still, need to iron out, so to speak, especially when it comes to businesses and business processes. The last thing you want is to have an issue on these AIs, and then you can't hit your KPI because the AI has drifted off, and then all of a sudden you've lost trust with your customers and your clients, and the next thing you know, you've gone out of business because the trust has been lost there, right? Your brand has been put into dire reputation and everything like that. So I think there's still a lot way to go. We still need to have protections, guardrails, governance, etc., security, all these different aspects, safety, etc., and they still need to be implemented and a part of every AI, right? So anyway, thank you very much, Doctor. And I'm going to go on to the next question now, which is, does sovereignty mean building AI from scratch or adopting global tools to solve local needs? So, Professor, we're going to bring you into this, and then Ian will go over to you after. Professor, please.
Okay. So look, first of all, I think that AI can be successful. In implementation of AI, the use of AI that can be successful only when that is going to address the need of the masses. That must be available to every corner of the world. Now, for that, to ensure that, not necessarily it is required to be reinvented. So if I take example of my country, India, so here if we like to leverage the global advances, then here are few things that you must keep in your mind while you are taking AI into applications. You must consider the languages, because language is one of the barrier or one of the medium to reach the mass for across the world, any country. Secondly, the culture, and third one is the economy. Look, the language, culture, and economy, if you consider these three, the AI system which may be applicable for US may not be applicable for India, may not be applicable for China. So the AI must have that kind of autonomy. So we must develop in such that it can decide whether it must start from the scratch or we can start from a certain level, but it must be context aware. Context aware AI system is very much required, because end of the day, the AI system must be driven for reducing the inequalities among the human lives. It must provide the access to healthcare. It must provide the access to healthcare, and definitely the education and opportunity for all. So if you'd like to ensure these, all those that we have discussed, in this case, you have to think about all those 3 points, like the language, culture, and economy. I think these 3 are most important while you are applying here. I just take back the example of, or I'll go back to the example of, say, suppose atom bomb. Look, the bomb, basically the atomic energy, and then from there the bomb has been prepared. Not for the nuclear power has not been prepared for basically destroying the human lives, but then to do something good. Now it depends on the human, the policy. So like the first 2-3 questions whenever we are discussing, who will control whether man or, say, suppose AI will be so powerful so that it can control itself and it will be a superpower. Look, nuclear power is also not a superpower nowadays, because there's a commission worldwide. Everybody needs to follow certain rules. Similarly, while we are going for application of AI, particularly in the healthcare and in other sector, which are basically associated with human lives, we must have like some set of, say, suppose a very high-powered committee who will decide, that will be worldwide, that how much AI can do, how much AI can go, whether AI must be used for humanity or doing bad. So this is
Sure.
my
So
conclusion.
I'm going to jump in, Professor, because I mean, first of all, Santosh has just joined us, so we'll get to you in a second, Santosh, and please, you'll be welcome to introduce yourself in just a sec. But when it comes to, does sovereignty mean building AI from scratch or adapting global tools to solve local needs? I mean, you do have a very big point, Professor, when it comes to power, obviously electricity, when it comes to having these data servers, you need all them in order to expand compute, of course, in order to be able to scale AI, right? That's a fact, and all the training and the data, etc. It has to all be provided by the power, and then also B, the data servers. When it comes to adopting global tools, though, to solve local needs, right? When we're talking about language, culture, etc., I'll go back to what Kamilika was saying earlier, which is that, and even I brought it up too, is open source, right? Being able to have the capabilities of open source, allowing people to have AI, A, on their local devices, but also B, in the cloud and compute, right? And being able to attach that to LLMs. I think having both of those options and allowing people to use both global tools, but also having local tools on their phone too. I don't think it's either or. I think it's and, right? You should have the American LLM and be able to have open source tools, right? So I think that's kind of like the combination that we should be aiming for and doing. And that's what I think like the bottom line is when it comes to this sort of question. So Santosh, please introduce yourself. Would love to hear about who you are and what you do. And then Ian, we'll head over to you after to also answer this question. So Santosh, please introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, good morning. My name is Santosh Kumar and I'm based at Colorado, Denver. And I'm having approx 15 plus years into AI, mostly into artificial intelligence, generative AI, and the domain I have into healthcare and insurance. So coming to the point, like how we can develop from the scratch for AI. So like you can say like it's not a binary. Some nations may need indigenous capability and based on their capability and the data how they are going to control. And but you can say sovereignty also means that can be adapted as a global tools, and it can provide responsible to the language, cultures, and problems, of course. So where we can get measures based on the data what we have, we can train the data like LLM, like we have the US, we have the European. So every country have the AI Policy Act. So the true sovereignty we can say is the freedom to choose. Like we have now, we can see the deep fake, right? So anybody can develop the model and they can do whatever they want to misuse you. Yeah. So can build, adapt, or hybridize without dependencies that undermines of resilience, we can say. So these are all like based on how you want to make it. It can be innovations plus regulations, because you have seen last month, right, how the US government, they have came up with policy like how they can regulate the AI. So it was coming through all the stats, but now they have deferred this policy. So we'll see that next couple of months how that's coming, and accordingly, like the models or LLM like can be like defined, trained, and tuned. So based on that, might be we can see. For example, I can give you like you can assume here everybody have a driving license, right? So there is some rules for us. We cannot go beyond the law. We cannot go beyond the regulations what we have for traffic, right? So similar here, we have the data. So we have the right data, right? So how we can develop this model? We cannot misuse the data. How? So this way, every country now they are coming with AI policy, and of course, once that will be developed based on their requirements and based on their capability, so we can see how the building AI from scratch to adapting the globals, or we can say the local needs.
I'll kind of jump into that, Santosh, because obviously policy is an interesting subject when it comes to governance of AI, and obviously every company has their own policies internally, right? But also when it comes to national level as well, like how you're saying. So EU AI Act is obviously very specifically for EU, right? You have 3 different levels to that, and obviously you've got the highest, the middle, and the low. But the thing is not everyone has those sort of policies, right? And you've got one end, which is the US, which has removed all the policies. You've got the EU, which has a lot of policies, right? So the question is depending on your country, right? How many policies do you want to have in place? And now, not necessarily every country is going to have a lot of policies, right? I'm not sure about the Asian region because I can't really comment on that too much. Maybe Ian can have some input on that side of things. Maybe he knows. But the point I'm getting at is when it comes to policies, it's very it depends on the sector, public and private, but also it depends on the country itself and how fast they want to innovate or not, or what's their priority. EU is more about safety, privacy, putting that first, right? The US, on the other hand, is more about innovation and wanting to go as fast as possible, which is completely fine. And how I said earlier when Kamalika spoke, I said you can have safety and innovation at the same time, right? I don't think it's an or, I think it's an and. So anyway, Ian, we'll bring you onto this question, and then Kamalika will go to you next with the next question because we are running out of time, and I want to get around to as many questions as possible. So we'll get your thoughts next, Kamalika. But Ian, over to you.
All right. I think major points have been already presented by many. So you just asked about what it's like in Asia, but I believe in many Asian countries, people are not really as conscious about this AI issue, like in other European countries or in other sides of the world. I really believe. So we are kind of vulnerable to this situation. So I'd like to just mention this. I think global tools must be most advanced. But the thing is, as we know, we also have our own local needs. But the thing is, there are not many global leaders in local areas to govern this and manage this. So I think that the global leaders' roles are very important. Like they must collaborate very, very closely with the local people there, and the combination, the collaboration. I think that's the most important thing. Like they must cooperate. But the thing, it seems like many good, talented people are they are how can I say? They are just populated in many major cities, and they don't really work together with local people. I think there should be some sort of like system where they can work closely together with each other. That could be the best way of dealing with this kind of issue.
That would be really good, honestly. I think if all the global leaders were able to come together and be able to do that, it would be great. But I also think at the same time, there's too much national interest and sovereignty, and like that. There's also a lot of hurdles that kind of come with that, right? And not when it comes to politics or politicians, so to speak, they don't always agree with each other and they disagree. And so, I mean, that's really hard to be able to do that, right? So to speak, on what you're saying. But anyway,
I think that's the point. Like that's why, like the public sectors have so much limitation in dealing with this stuff. Like probably local, great local, private companies might be able to, monitor this. Like they can, inspect this sort of situation, in their own standards, so that they can, as long as they can create some kind of profits out of doing that, maybe they might be able to, create some sort of ideal outcomes in managing this AI stability issue, in some way, I think. So public sector should play some role, but I think that's it has too many limitations at the moment, because of the system itself. It is too rigid. It takes so much time in making a decision, making things like that. Okay.
Kamalika, what happens if the drive for dominance overshadows responsibility? What is your thoughts on that? And yeah, show us your thoughts on that, Kamalika.
Yeah, in my perspective, it's more of an accountability question, because if we're talking about what happens, it directly implies that we're talking about the impact or an outcome of hey, if our priorities are misaligned, what happens then? And I think that's again leads us back to the same question of who should be held accountable for the actions or the steps in AI model or AI is taking. Usually there's this narrative that most of the jurisdictions are many times slow to catch up with the pace of innovation at which technology grows, but eventually they're able to usually catch up. So even if we take the example of I think it was Canada Air or some of the airlines where the chatbot hallucinated, and basically the airline had to compensate the customer for the fault for the wrong information that the chatbot delivered, which means the airline was held accountable because they had some sort of ownership. So I think when it comes to private sector, it depends that or private sector or if it is owned by an entity, then of course the impact decides how far you're going to go in terms of making the amendments. For example, if we talk about human society, we have consequences from giving someone capital punishment to just charging them a small amount of money depending on the harm they've caused. I think it goes similar for AI as well, that it depends on the amount of harm that has been inflicted and by who. If it is an entity that is owning or developing these AI models, then yes, they definitely should be held accountable. But if we talk about something like open source, where it is a contribution from an entire community, so you really can't point fingers at one individual. In that case also, I think it goes back to how human society works in general, that as a human being you mess up and you will have consequences. Similarly, if a community is, or a community knowingly or unknowingly, because it is easier for crowds to be misled as compared to individuals. So if it is an entire community or crowd that is going in a direction which is causing harm to let's say someone, then we can see something like that already happening in the world right now, and how there are consequences to that as well.
No, yeah, I mean, safety is so I think it's very overlooked sometimes, but it is very crucial and important, and so is security and governance and responsible AI, and I mean, for me, it's also trustworthy AI, right? How much can I trust this model? Like, can I trust it to be able to do what it needs to do? Or is it not going to, right? How can I check that? How can I make it so that it can earn my trust, so that I can be allowed to use or be used within businesses, but also, on a personal level? Like, if you're communicating that and talking to that and sharing your thoughts and feelings, so to speak, can I trust it with all that, or is it going to come back to me like in the future? So, I think I completely agree with everything that you're saying, Kamalika. And it's just, at what point, like, I think all of these parts are fundamental, that we need to be able to have a way in which we can have them all together. And that's why, for me, when it comes to trust, it's kind of like all of these parts come together to allow you to trust it, right? Rather than just blindly trusting it and just allowing it to do whatever it wants to do. So, and I completely agree. Accountability, transparency, ethics, all of that stuff is extremely important. But anyway, I need to stop talking because we've run out of time. So thank you for everyone for joining us. It's been a fantastic roundtable discussion. Very insightful from every single one of you. Dr. Professor Ian, Kamalika, thank you for coming. Please follow everyone on this panel. Make sure you connect with them on LinkedIn. Follow what they do, follow their shares on LinkedIn as well. Also follow me too. That would be appreciated. And that's it for this roundtable discussion. And that's it from all of us. So I'm going to say a big thank you, and I'm going to hand the microphone over back to the GatherVerse team. So that is it from us. Gather as well, and have a great rest of your day, evening, night, wherever you are. Goodbye.
Thank you so much.